Hey everybody, and welcome to another great Netrunner telecast here. This is Hollis.
And this is Ricky.
And we're here to bring you some great fun, show you a really cool game here between myself and Zach the Mac Cavis.
Yeah, we are recording video and audio commentary from the store championship in Giga-bites Cafe, Marietta, Georgia.
Yeah, it was a really good. Locale. They were really nice, friendly people. What do you think?
Absolutely. We're told, man, we're such good friends with a lot of people down there, and as much as we can, we drive down there and compete for the gold, as they say.
Unfortunately, we didn't bring home the gold. We tried really hard.
We tried. You tried a little harder, but no spoilers. We set up a recording and everything there along with our good friend Ben, and
right.
We're here to bring you a couple of good matches that we recorded alongside them as well, and hopefully you guys enjoy it.
Now, as you can see, you've got me on the left here playing Replicating Perfection. Zach on the right is playing Andromeda. Good old Andy.
Good old Andy.
Just a little bit, really quickly here, I guess before the whole game starts. Man, Zach is hands down the nicest player I have ever played.
Zach, I heard, would punch a baby to access archives.
Okay, so even with that, okay, you know what? Yeah, he's a jerk. Who cares?
No,
Zach is a jerk.
Zach is tremendous, and I heard that he overcame crashing his car or almost totaling it in order to make it there. He drove all the way from, where's he, Indiana?
Is it West Virginia, Indiana?
West Virginia. No,
yeah.
It's West Virginia. It's tremendously far just to play a card game with a couple of guys.
Yeah. I mean, he's an excellent player. He got second at Nationals. I want to say maybe top 8, top 16 at Worlds.
He got second at Nationals, top 8.
Wow. Mm-hmm. Wow. Yeah, absolutely phenomenal player.
Absolutely.
I also like his efficiency. Like he keeps his play area so darn neat. It's amazing.
He does. There's nothing on his play area at the moment, but in reference to not only Zach and our good friend Hollis here, this particular store championship was just full of tremendous players, notable players.
Right.
We had another top 8 player there in Worlds this year. We had several people that did extremely well in Nationals, including Ahmed.
Mm-hmm. Ahmed did well.
Yes. We had our usual show up of very good competitors as far as regionals go. Kevin, shout out. We had, I think, how many players total were there?
47, I do believe, which 47. Is just, it's so many for store champ. Just a store champ is phenomenal.
The entire day we were talking about it's a mini regionals, and that's pretty much exactly how it felt.
Yeah.
But we're getting the game going here already. You do the standard ice, and then just kind of do a couple of do a credit there, and then he's getting started very strong with security testing, Desperado, and Dirty Laundry running archives.
Yes, I mean basically his setup is kind of what you expect from Andy. You know, you want to get that Desperado out immediately, security testing out, so you can start making money for the long game.
Yes.
And then the Dirty Laundry just basically paid for the Desperado and things like that. So
it's exactly what you expect out of Andy. But although interesting, he installed Data Sucker last before running Dirty Laundry.
Oh well, I mean the reason why I did that obviously is because when you play the Desperado, he had 2 credits left. He couldn't spend the credit without playing.
Of course. Yes. And then you're setting up what I can only assume is Sundew.
Yeah, I mean Notorious, the notorious Glare Do.
Glare Do.
That he doesn't like.
Yeah, the Netrunner sleeves official from FFG are just like magnets for glare no matter what you do.
They're pretty. Yeah, they're pretty, but man, they bounce light. I mean, it's just they should be. Man, we should have a card about that.
But
refractor.
He's running. Yeah, he's running security testing. Get a couple of data suckers. Not a couple. One. Get some money. Desperado security testing. Fairy goes on the field. It's fantastic.
So he goes after the Sundew immediately, and it looks like I can't tell what that is. What did I res?
It is a Galahad.
Okay, good. So just, quick ETR.
So it looks like you're running the Grail RP.
Yes, I came in on the tail end of that being the RP flavor. Obvious benefits of playing Grail versus a centered build. They can't run safely until they have all their breakers. Now, versus Andy, however, Stealth Andy is a really great matchup versus RP.
Yes.
And you'll see some more tricks that Zach has later. But, like Galahad means that, if I have a Lancelot in hand, if I have a Merlin, you can't you can't run, a server without all 3 of your breakers. You risk losing a program. Right. But, Zach is a skilled player. He's smart. He knows, he's seen this stuff before. So we'll see how that unfolds as the game goes on.
Zach, undoubtedly a skillful player. He the only way I can kind of describe his plays are almost not robotic in a bad way, but robotic in a logical sense.
Yes. Now, actually, I made an error here. He simply announced that he was security testing archives, and I mistook it that he wanted to run it, and I ended up rezzing it. Now, to be fair, Zach was nice enough to go ahead and just use Fairy with it, but really he didn't lose that badly on that, considering that I did go down pretty low in credits to do so. It was very pleasant of him to go ahead and say hey, I'll just go ahead and break it, gain the money. Absolutely,
one of the most courteous players I've ever played against or ever actually seen. He's just he's very methodical, and he's courteous and respectful.
Yeah, very respectful guy.
Absolutely. So then we got. You're covering all essentials. You're good to go. It looks like Archives is a no-go at the moment.
Right. I mean, I do. If you're on his side of the field, you know that you don't want to hit that. You don't want to have to go through that Komai Inu on Archives.
Right.
Usually, a Komai Inu by itself is enough to kind of protect a server in the beginning of the game. It's not great ice placement though.
Well then, it's my thing about running RP in general is you want to get that Sentry Breaker out quickly. But then now with the Grail Ice Suite in RP,
right.
It's almost like you want the Code Gate Breaker out as well.
Merlin is really strong because a lot of the field has moved away from using Yogg just because of the dependency on Data Sucker and how it doesn't interact with Lotus Field.
Right.
But Merlin, I don't know. I like Merlin as the ICU install, and you hold the Lancelot and the Galahad in hand.
Absolutely. But it seems like the days of just, hey, I'm just going to go check out some stuff and make them res for money are kind of over.
Well, it's not over. It's just you have to do it a lot more carefully. I mean, nowadays you have to have a Sentry available. If you see the Grill Suite or any piece of the Grill Suite, you just have to stay careful. And remember, you still really don't get penalized that harshly for running naked, if you will. Yes. So, I mean, you still have an option as a runner to hit things before you play any cards down. Right.
The danger is specifically in this deck. You risk losing your hand running into Komai Inu. If you're playing Astro or Astrobiotics and NEH, you risk giving them an extreme advantage by hitting an Architect.
Correct.
Which Sentry Breakers have always been really important in this game. Whether it was Rototurret back in the day or even Grim, Sentries are usually the nastiest pieces of ice that you run into.
Right. And I mean, he had a great start. I mean, he used a fairy, very early to get to that first Komai Inu in Archives, and it looks like he had another one to quickly replace it. So he's actually in a pretty good spot. I mean, if worst case scenario, if I end up trashing something, it'll probably be Data Sucker, which means he doesn't really lose a whole lot there. So right. he's in a really good spot.
Right. I mean, getting rid of something like a Yogg or even a Corroder, that's a lot,
right.
A lot better.
I mean, basically, you have to once the Corroder's out, because a lot of these anti-decks only play one. Once the Corroder's out, you have to make sure you're being careful enough to never allow it to get trashed.
Shout out to Ross, 1 Corroder, no recursion. No, 2 Corroders. I'm just playing, buddy. So you're covering HQ with what I can only assume is the lovely Caprice.
Yes, I mean at this point I'm pretty sure that an account siphon is very could be happening. At this point I'm also thinking, hey, maybe he's holding breakers and he's simply just trying to poke and prod.
Right.
So I figured he knows I'm going to res this. I have to because Caprice is there.
Yes, he's got to check it out. He's got Fairy out. He's not too afraid of anything. Merlin would be the worst case scenario here. Make you trash a couple things, make you
right.
take a couple net, but
this this was a pretty clear misplay.
You're
by
low
me.
on credits.
Yeah, I'm too low on credits, but also he doesn't really have any credits either.
He has a ton actually.
How many credits is that?
He looks like he has 14.
Why didn't he trash that? It must have been something that happened.
I'm not sure either. But he's running R&D and he steals not a Caprice Nice, an NAPD. She's
Very
on
good.
the card, but she's
Okay. Maybe he didn't trash it. I don't know why he didn't trash that. I wonder why.
That is interesting. But he comes out on top in that turn.
Right. The NAPD score is pretty strong here. I mean, unfortunately, the Future Perfect is one of those cards that you never want to see. I mean, it's so horrible.
Right.
It's so good.
And that's the other thing about this deck is that every single agenda in the deck is, unless you steal an Issei, of course, all the other agendas that are actually worth more points or that can get you on the board as far as points score wise, they're hard. They're hard to take. They're hard to steal.
Yeah.
A lot of people put Fetal in there for that purpose.
Yes.
But yeah, you want to steal those Niseis really quickly.
You do. I think the hard part is, I mean, you can't. There's no way to really, choose which agendas you steal as the core. Yeah, you got to find them first. And I mean, at that point, you're willing to take every agenda that you can. You know what I mean?
Right.
He double dips into R&D, tries to hit as many agendas as he can.
Gets rid of a second Capri.
Yes.
Sounds good.
So I think now with the meta, going more towards max, it kind of feels like, and with Valencia being there, it kind of feels like NAPD is not necessarily on its way out, but there's other options. I actually just discussed maybe removing my NAPDs. Mm-hmm. Go ahead and just replace them with Fetals. If you just Fetal AIs.
Yes.
When you notice all too often when you play RP deck, when people get to the last leg of the game, they start to just lose their hand size. Mm-hmm. And I mean, with Fetal in the deck, it basically means you can't do that anymore. You have to respect the net damage that you can take.
Right.
And Fetal can actually end the game as a result if they're not careful.
Right. Fetal's no stranger to RP, but like you said, it depends. The game entirely depends on the card pool at the moment and the ever changing strategies that people come up with. So Fetal and RP could be a really dangerous thing for people to watch out for.
Now, this is where I'm sort of in a bad spot. Ideally, what I would like to do is I'd really enjoy maybe a lot more ice here so that I can start making not only making my centrals more taxing, but start the process of getting that remote together and scoring agenda out.
Yes.
As you can tell right now, I'm kind of hurting. I've got enough money to do something with, but not enough ice. Mm-hmm. I would love to start scoring an agenda, a Nisei, something.
Right.
But
it doesn't look like you're actually pulling any.
No, I mean basically this is one of the few cases where RP. I mean, there you go. I'm looking at sitting on 13 credits right now. I mean, one of the biggest issues I found when piloting RP sometimes is that you can have all the ice and all the money, but you've got to see the agendas to score them. I mean, basically you've got to get moved to in the game, and there's so few agendas in the deck. I mean, there's only 9. That if they're not coming out fast enough and your opponent is given all the time in the world to build up, they really can force themselves into that remote. And I mean, in the current circumstance where Caprice has been trashed, and I've got one already installed, it makes it tough. It makes it really, really tough.
Definitely does. Playing RP in general is tough.
It's just like any other deck. I mean, you play it enough times, you practice it, and you get it. I think the hardest part of playing RP really is ice placement. I mean, because let's be honest, once that first Nisei is scored, your chances of winning just go up astronomically. I mean, you're pretty much, barring some really bad luck, probably going to win the game.
And it's happened. It's happened before.
Yes, it has happened.
But yeah, it just once you get past a certain point, the tough becomes even tougher.
Right.
And you have to really start thinking about end game. If it's even possible. Yeah. But which is a really good reason why a lot of people play it, including this year's World Championship winner.
Yep.
Dandy Arjun.
It's a great ID, and given how effective NEH is, if you tech against NEH, you're usually going to be weaker versus RP. So I did a celebrity gift there. Yeah. And I mean, you can see I got the Jackson. I got a Future Perfect in hand. So I've got an agenda to score, but it's not the agenda I want to score.
Cool thing about RP and its agenda suite is that celebrity gift being one of its main econ engines, you're not afraid to show most of your agendas.
No. I mean, knowing that you've got Caprice like on HQ, and that the agendas are so hard to steal, you pretty much rationalize showing them the hand doesn't really give them the opportunity to really take anything.
Absolutely. Runners look at it and say, "Great, hey, those are things, those are points. Right. I'd love those, but I'm not going to try and go get them."
Yep. I would argue that playing the Grail Suite is makes Celebrity Gift a little bit worse, Because at the moment you show the mini grill ice, they automatically know the deal.
That's interesting.
And they pretty much know, hey, right from the beginning of the game, do not run unless I have all breakers.
Right. And then on the opposite end of the spectrum, if you do a celebrity gift early, and like we were talking earlier about like testing out ice and whatnot, or like probing servers.
Yeah,
that's a good way to be like, hey, I got these. Do you want to faceplant that?
Right.
Go find it.
You know what? And I mean, props to Zach. You probably can't hear it from the video. In the process of the game, as I was showing Celebrity Gift, it was amazing. Zach, he was paying attention to the ice, as you should, but he was absolutely able to determine where every piece of unrest ice was throughout the game. Every single unrest piece of ice. He basically said, hey, if it was me, I'd install this here. If it was me, I'd put this here. And basically, he just, I mean, because of Celebrity Gift, he automatically knew where everything was.
The guy remembers everything.
He does.
He remembers games from like weeks before that. I remember hearing him talking about that. I played Zach once in the winter tournament before Worlds that day, and basically was running a Scorch variant, and he put down a Plascrete, turn 4 or click 4, and with no inclination at all whatsoever. And I asked him like, why did you do that? He's like, it's possible.
Yeah. So I think this is where my biggest mistake was. So as you can see, Zach is sitting on maybe I want to say less than 12 credits.
Yes.
He's got the passport, the data sucker, and the ferry.
Right.
Now, this is where we talk about like how plays could have changed everything. He's got Ghost Runner, so I know he's doing some sort of stealth play here somewhere.
Yes.
Probably with Switchblade.
Yes, I would assume so. A lot of people were running Refractor as well. A lot of people in this tournament were running both. But we'll see. There's Switchblade. Ghost Runner in general screams one of those two, if not both.
You probably. And I mean, as you can see, the Caprice is now on HQ. Now, had I not played that, I would have probably went ahead and placed it in the remote where the Sundew currently is. I'm sitting at over 25 credits.
Right.
So this is clearly this is a scoring window, and I have that future perfect. This might have been that time where I would have probably had to say, hey, let's go for broke. Mm-hmm. Let's drop let's go and, with the Caprice already there, let's go ahead and let's drop the future perfect and just try to get 3 points on the board. If I get 3 points on the board, then I'm in a pretty good space. Plus, he's forced to spin credits trying to get through the server to begin with.
Right, and this game is kind of going into that the mid game level where we're talking about the difficulty level goes up a lot more. Right. This being that his security testing, which usually does work against a lot of people, it's doing nothing right now. It's got no empty server or pretty much easy to get into server to gain those credits from, so he's just not using it. Not only that, his Hollis's servers are getting really stacked, or they're starting to, and then ELP, Enhanced Login Protocol, hits the board, and that is just cream on the cake. Yeah. It's rough. It makes you spend an extra click to run the server your first time, unless you're using card ability. That's the one thing to get through that. But it just makes things so difficult, especially when you're trying to steal agendas, of which there's not a lot of in the deck, and it's crazy. It's nuts. Yeah, so it looks like you guys are betting.
Yeah, we play the betting game here. He beats that bet, and that's 2.
He's running HQ.
Actually, no. I think that was actually he bet 2. I bet 1.
Right.
And as you can see, like this is. Oh no, I guess he did.
He bet 1 die, and then you bet 1
credit
token. Yeah.
And then that's 2 Caprice gone.
Exactly.
2 Caprice gone. So now he's in a good spot. He's got his Switchblade out, and it doesn't really, because of data sucker counters, he can kind of get in pretty inexpensive. I mean, the run is inexpensive, so he can actually like siphon if he wants to, and immediately bump his credits back up.
Right.
And as you can look, if you look at his hand, he's carrying it. Like he's got the siphon in hand.
Right, and it's something that we were talking about even just yesterday. You don't see Siphon pulled off a lot anymore, at least as much as it used to be.
Right. Well, nowadays, I guess, depending on the ID, the way you mitigate the Siphon is you simply make the run where they would account Siphon you to be as expensive, or to be so expensive, so that they're not really gaining a huge benefit once the tags are removed, as an example.
Right.
So, if you make the run cost 5 credits, then you make the run cost 5 credits and they remove both tags, they've only net 1 credit, you've lost 5. Mm-hmm. It makes it look a lot less attractive to do the Siphon. I mean, you still may want to do it, but it's not nearly as
spammy.
What's the word I'm looking for?
Effective?
Yeah, I mean
Profitable?
Yeah, it's not as profitable. It's just not. It's not a profitable run at that point. And now you have to kind of determine if the run you'd make would actually be worth it.
Right. Criminals, especially Andy, still run account siphon just because it doesn't make it ineffective or less good in certain situations. You still have to threaten it. But what is good in criminal at the moment is this card, legwork.
Yeah, legwork is good. He hits the future perfect immediately.
Yes.
We played the betting game, and I get lucky on that one. He tries to find a new card.
Key to running RP is really making quality runs versus quantity, and meaning making a quality run, you see you access more than one card at the time,
right?
Because you're trying to find one of 9 cards in his 49 card deck.
Basically,
so when you're stabbing the HQ and it's already hard enough to get in there with Caprice and super taxing servers, you have to make sure that you're going to come out on top every time you run, and versus just running and hoping you get something with one pull.
Yeah. And actually, Zach makes a good play, and I mean, of course, he's such a nice player. I couldn't say no. He realized he had available credits on his Ghost Runner in addition to the credits that he had, in his credit pool.
Ah, yeah.
So he said, "Hey, I saw the NAPD. Instead of me just letting it go, do you care if I just trash these Ghost Runners and take it?" And of course, I mean, why not? I mean,
absolutely, you have to.
I mean, at that point, the game state hadn't really changed. Nothing, nothing really changed. It was worth it to go ahead and let him use it.
One thing that didn't change is that ELP is still out there, but it's not in play at the moment since he stole that NPD.
That's right. Yeah, I guess we kind of forgot that. I think actually we do realize it though.
Right.
I think we realize it very soon that it's not supposed to be there.
Yeah, it's all good. But man, it happens so much. Throughout tournaments, it's just things go on. You watched in all kinds of videos out there that even at the highest caliber of play, even at the very, very highest caliber of play, mistakes are made. This game is kind of complicated.
It has a lot of moving parts. I mean, that's the part of Netrunner. A lot of card games like that are in the same wheelhouse don't have as many moving parts.
Absolutely.
So many triggers.
So Ghost Runner is gone, but Silencer comes in and starts making up for that.
Right. I mean, here's what's excellent about his current situation. So the crutch of having Switchblade is that you need credits to boost. Well, Data Sucker fixes it. Mm-hmm. Because now that he's got Data Sucker counters, he can just lower the strength of the sentry he's encountering and just pay the one stealth credit to get through. Right. So he's pretty much guaranteed, unless I start to stack sentries, that it doesn't really matter. He can just make sure he gets in just from lowering the strength.
Right.
So he's in a good spot, and he has Fairy. So, I mean, no matter what, I can't keep him out.
Yeah.
I don't think I can.
Well, it looks like you think you can. Because you're putting that's the other bad thing about running against RP is that usually when they install and advance something, it's an agenda for sure. Also, they're almost absolutely positive that you're not going to be able to get into it.
He was sitting at 0 credits, when the run ended. So I mean, he basically gave me the winner to score, and I think there you go. See, he noticed the ELP. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think he knows also that it could have given a window, but he knows that he's got to get points.
Right. And
there's not many agendas he can hit that will allow him to get them. So
not only that. He's got he's at memory. No, he's not at memory, but his only code gatebreaker at the moment is Passport, and it doesn't work on the remote. So yeah, it's a pretty safe bet, and especially if that's not an Issei, he's gonna go up to 6 points, but he's gonna have to pay for it. But he only has 3. Right. So that's what we call a scoring window.
Yeah, I mean it definitely was a pretty wide window, unless you're stim hacks. Kidding.
Yeah, man, stim hack. Card of the day there, apparently.
Yeah.
But we'll save that for later.
So let's see. He's got... I mean, you can see the siphon. I mean, he's in a really good spot here to maybe try to trigger account siphon, possibly.
Maybe, yeah. Mm-hmm. Silencer's doing work in that
and I mean,
respect.
the breaking of that Tsurugi is not going to cost him anything with Data Sucker counter. So, I mean, it's actually... A siphon here is not a bad idea. I can't recall what he does, though.
You haven't seen much influence on his side either, so it begs the question, if he's not running Refractor, it might be Parasite, in which case there are a ton of good candidates in RP to put a Parasite on.
Well, you have to imagine he's running like an R&D interface or two.
True, absolutely.
And then is that a Yogg in his hand? I think it is.
Oh, I don't know. He's running... Maybe.
If you look at his hand...
Whatever it is, he's got a special order to go find it.
True. Mm-hmm. That is true. Now, see, what he's thinking right now, granted, I can't tell, but I know when I sit across from RP, my biggest fear And I mean, what I would immediately think, looking at the board, I've got 2 NAPDs. In my head, the only card that agenda that you would be willing to score right now would be a Nisei. That's like my immediate brain goes to, this has got to be a Nisei Mark II. It's got to be.
It has to be, man. If it isn't, things are going to be a little rough for you.
Right. Has to be Nisei.
He uses said special order to go fetch his barrier breaker, and at the moment he's pretty well set up. The only thing he can't break are code gates on remotes, and that's pretty good. I mean, what are some of the code gates he needs to watch out for in RP?
Code gates. I mean, pretty much Toe Booth, Lotus Field, Quandary are the most common ones. If you're running Grail, you're going to be using Merlin.
Right.
Really, you don't see much more than that.
Right.
I don't think.
Right, but the Lotus Field's going to put you in a dead halt if you're using Passport.
Right.
Merlin is going to be straight up, could mean potential death. And Quandary stops you as well. So
I get the Nisei. There it is.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
It's on the board. Now, you can't panic here, but I mean, this is where it gets kind of tough. Because you know that Nisei almost guarantees the next agenda score.
Right.
And the last thing that he would want, it would be another Nisei.
Absolutely.
RP works because you can basically guess, or you can basically tell from the time from the time it gets used, or you score a Nisei, how many turns you have before you can score again, right?
Right.
So a Nisei counter means that they have to run archives first, then they got to run the remote. You use Nisei, then they got to run it again. Mm-hmm. So it's going to be 3 actions on their turn.
Right.
When you start looking at 2 Nisei scored, that means that everything they do on their turn, when it's that terminal, like I'm going to win the game next turn window, everything they do on their turn has to be towards that agenda. If one action is not towards that, they're not gonna win.
Right. And like we were saying before, it's already difficult enough to just make a regular run to steal a regular agenda. When you get it to the point where you have to steal the game-winning agenda after they've installed it, having one, let alone two Nisei counters on the field makes it practically impossible.
Right.
Which is why this deck is so excellent. You just have to build up to that point.
And I think this is where I hesitated when I shouldn't have. So he's sitting here with very few credits in his credit pool, but he can siphon, and I know that. And I know if he siphons, he's got enough credits to run.
Yeah.
But I have a Future Perfect in hand. And I know that with that Future Perfect, that'll put me up at 5 points, and that'll take care of business.
So here's a question. Saving that Nisei counter, would you rather spend it on scoring that Future Perfect, or would you rather save it to score you another Nisei counter?
In the current game state, because a Future Perfect would win him the game, I'd rather score the Future Perfect right now.
Right.
I mean, obviously, I want to chaining a Nisei would be amazing, but I would rather get the Future Perfect right now, and maybe use the Nisei counter on a siphon. Mm-hmm. And I would love to see a Caprice so I can throw it in the remote. I would love to see that.
Absolutely. Caprices looks like you might have thrown a couple back in with that Jackson.
Right.
Which is great. It's fantastic. Not for him. It's such a good card, and a lot of people, it really enabled not only RP, but it enabled a lot of different decks. But it just makes it difficult in general. It's not broken. It's not unbeatable. But and there's, I wouldn't really say a science, but there's a lot added to this game when it comes to bets.
You mean the side games?
Yes.
Specifically side games?
Yes.
My main issue with side games is kind of that if you look at the current like my side, right? There's a lot to be said regarding whether or not it's random or whether or not you can use information to discern what you should bet. But let's be honest. I'm sitting on what's near 20 credits. Mm-hmm. So at the point where I'm sitting on 20 credits, what do you think I'll bet? 2? Well, you're wrong. Because if you think I think you're gonna think that I'm gonna bet 2, and so I'm gonna bet 1.
Yeah, I think that's the general assumption. Hey, he's got a lot of credits. He's gonna spend his money. Well,
right. I mean, even if you were to factor in the ice that I have unres, at this point you have to consider what servers are important to me to res ice on. I mean, like obviously I don't want to res I don't have a card in the remote yet, right?
Right.
So I don't want to res the ice on the remote. I don't care about the ice on archives right now. I care about the ice on R&D and HQ. Yeah. So, and even with those res, I probably have enough credits to bet whatever I want. So I mean, it's just irrelevant. I mean, this would be an example of a truly random time for for the Caprice bet.
Right. Absolutely. And it's just it's interesting it's a whole other factor that's been added to this game that just even more so than not, it comes down to actually making the game.
Right.
How many times have there been where the outcome of the game is the bet? Makes it so exciting. It's exciting. A lot of people view it as not so exciting because it's difficult to kind of counteract and stuff. But at the end of the day, it is pretty random, unless it comes down to very specific scenarios. And that's an aspect of the game that's in it now, that's been added, and it's welcomed by some and it's not welcomed by others. But
it's dumb. It's dumb. I mean, you can't just.
Yeah, I mean, I can't honestly say personally that I enjoy betting. To go and take something that I've paid for and I feel like I've earned, but at the same time, it adds complication and it builds a lot, and it makes you kind of develop and grow as a player. So if betting is a part of the game that has to happen, then so be it.
I feel like most of the time when I play RP, and I have the combination of Future Perfect and Caprice Nice, I feel very much that I win the game if I win 3 side games.
That's being said a lot.
Yeah, I feel like if I win 1 side game on the remote, I win 1 side game. I win 1 side game on a remote, 1 side game on a central because of Caprice, and then I win 1 side game because they try to sell a Future Perfect. I'm pretty confident I've won the game.
It's definitely it's definitely situational, but you win 1 side game, it's cool, it's awesome, it's good for you. You win 2 or 3, it's getting really great for you. You win more than 2 or 3, things are going very well. It's because
it is so, every run is so is so expensive that it starts to be, it really just stops being fun to an extent. I mean I complain a lot about certain things. I think the side game thing is, if you've accepted it and it doesn't bother you anymore, you're fine.
Right. A lot of people are kind of coming up. I mean, they use random dice rolls. Dan was very famous for using that in his recorded games and worlds. People use those rings and stuff like that. You can randomize it. You can kind of choose to mitigate it however you like, but it definitely adds a level of difficulty to the game that was not there.
Zach has a pretty complete rig here. If you look at it, he's got 2 silencer out. So that silencer, or excuse me, Switchblade can definitely break something. He's got a fairy. He's got his passport, a data sucker, corroder.
Security testing still not doing anything, unfortunately.
He's hit the point of the game now where security testing really doesn't do a whole lot. But
if he needs it to, he can. He's got that pup server, and he's got
And look at his data sucker counters. I mean, basically, if he wants to use security testing on R&D, he can. Like, if he wants to security test R&D right now, he can probably lower the strength. I don't know. I mean, it's pretty simple for him to get in there, or maybe even the remote. Yeah, the remote's perfect.
Problem being versus this matchup is that your servers are so... I mean, they're not monumentally high, but each one is pretty particularly taxing. Yeah. And the problem with that being that, like, if you chose to wipe his virus counters, that it wouldn't be too much of a detriment to you, because in order to build those virus counters back up again, it would take a lot. But I mean, speaking as far as like servers go, data sucker counters and security testing is one thing. I mean, then you got to worry about scoring, and that's, again, it's so difficult.
He's in a great spot because I'm sitting on very few credits and with just a Koma Inu in that server. Mm-hmm. So he actually only has to spend 1 stealth credit because Koma Inu is only a strength of 1. Right. So all he has to do is take, and I think now he definitely is going to do it because he's got the John Mass. So because he's got Mr. Masanori over there, he can say, all right, well, I run archives. I'm going to gain the security testing. The run is free. I draw a card.
Right. And you notice this fallacy, or not fallacy, you notice this weakness in one of your servers, and you ice up on top of it. And he runs R&D afterwards and sees another Caprice and trashes it. It's great.
I'm pretty sure I Jacksoned in. Out of the 2 Jacksons that have come out this far, I'm pretty confident
you put them back.
Yeah, I did put them back. The hope is, of course, I see them and I can toss them in the remote as soon as possible.
Right. So another aspect of playing with and versus RP is a time factor. A lot of people starting out when RP was kind of gaining popularity is noticing that playing RP takes a while. this game in particular, I mean, it's gone on a little while, but a lot of people go to time. A lot of people have difficulty kind of mitigating that the time it takes to play the game. How do you do it?
It really just comes with playing the deck enough. I mean, you play any one of these decks, long enough, you kind of know the right line of play for a particular situation. That's why you play test it over and over again.
Right.
When you're in a weird, muddled up game, game scenario, game state, you determine, okay, in my previous experience playing and piloting this deck versus somewhat similar or exact matchups, I know the best line of play is X, Y, Z. And that's why you play test the deck. That's why you play it over and over versus people.
It becomes second nature.
Right. It really does become second nature. I mean, that's the plan. So, when you're playing RP, number one, your deck takes a little bit longer to score, so you do play a little faster, and you get more efficient at playing that deck. So it doesn't take as long.
Right. Did you run into any difficulties this particular tournament with that, as far as going to time or kind of playing other people with it?
There was only one instance where I went to time, and it was during the finals in which we agreed to continue playing even with that.
Right.
So.
I've noticed going to I noticed going to a couple of tournaments with you that going to time is something that is definitely you're no stranger to going to time. But you always play the game out anyway.
It just depends. It just depends on the player.
Is it a good game? Is it yeah, right?
I mean, so if it's in the finals, if it's in the finals, and what happened at this tournament when that did happen, that was basically both players agreed that it continues. The last couple times I went to time, basically, did you see that? So we're gonna pause my talking. Yes, he's a genius. So he's running the personal touch. And he throws that on the switchblade. Now, the reason why he does that is because I do believe he also does run Yogg. So so you can't lower the strength of Lotus Field, but you can raise the strength of Yogg, which means that it definitely gets through Merlin, and it gets through Lotus Field and it's pretty inexpensive. Also, if you notice, he's running that Data Sucker as well, so the strength can be lowered, and so it's a little bit easier for him to get through a toe booth should he see fit to.
Right. It's so interesting. That's definitely a personal take on his choice that a lot of people aren't doing. But man, it's cool. I dig it. I like it.
Another big advantage is that you see what it also did for him versus RP. So because he knows that cards like Komai Inu are in the deck, the personal touch actually allows him the ability to basically increase the strength just marginally on the Switchblade. So he can use a combination of stealth support and Data Sucker support, and it is the most effective combination of efficiency. It's so good.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it makes up for a lot of shortcomings in the Andromeda build, or criminal build in general, and it's interesting. I mean, your Switchblade is such a strong breaker as it is. When you have everything set up and everything like that, there's not much that can stand in its way. Adding strength to it on top of that only helps.
Right. And I mean, he's like I said. I mean, the deck is pretty well set up to kind of do everything. I mean, the deck is set. With the stealth suite and with personal touch, he's really set up well versus RP decks. So they're not going to tax him too bad. And it's Andy, so you know that the econ package is there and the early game breakers are there to be able to actually hit centrals as early as possible versus any age.
Right.
So he's just in a really good spot. Overall, just an excellent spot to be in.
Yeah, and not only that, he's got Fairy out there to kind of, just in case. But man, let's talk about I wouldn't say overkill, but it's definitely he's good century wise. He's good.
I mean, he doesn't have anything to worry about at this point. Also, the personal touch does, like I said, it takes stress off his Data Sucker. He doesn't really require Data Sucker as much,
right?
Because he's
still
got
helps,
the personal touch. Yeah,
it still helps. And I mean, Data Sucker counters are always welcome.
Right.
Data Sucker counters are basically money. They save you credits. It's not credits per se, but it's credits you're not spending on pumping up your breakers.
Looks like he doesn't worry that much about getting into a remote with a Koge breaker. But I imagine that if he saw a Lotus Field. Or he saw a Merlin on the remote, he'd be willing to actually
take the nat.
Yeah, he'd be willing to take the nat, or whatever the case was. It's not that big of a deal for him.
Yeah, the only problem he has to worry about is Lotus Field. Pretty much is
Lotus Field will keep him out, and if he has a Merlin, he can't break it, and I have a Lancelot in hand, then he's going to lose a program.
Yes.
But I do believe that like I said, I do believe he runs Yogg. So worst case scenario, he just removes the passport entirely and just plays the Yogg. I think that's the right play.
Right. And stacking that remote server 3 cards deep, that greatly increases the chance.
Yeah,
of
and
that happening.
Yeah, and it also, I mean, when the server like that, I'm telegraphing that I'm trying to build a scoring window.
Right.
However, the situation is looking pretty bleak. I mean, he's got 3d6 worth of credits, so he's got plenty of money.
Huh?
Hey man, I'm just I call him like a CM. He's got 3d6 worth of credits.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
that means he has at least 10, right?
Right.
And so I mean he's rolling in money there. I'm not going to be able to keep him out. The best I can hope for is that Caprice and a combination of Nisei counters kind of carries me to a victory.
Right. Yeah.
Because I mean I'm just in a really bad spot. He can hit R&D every single turn. I'm kind of locked here. I just have to kind of try to get a little lucky with the with the scoring a bit.
Yeah.
Which, if there's any deck to do it, it's RP.
Absolutely.
I mean, winning Caprice a few times is all it takes. I told you, if I win 3 side games, that usually means I win the game.
Another component to playing RP basically is that ice placement, like we were talking about earlier, and that scoring remote's ice placement is particularly important.
Yes.
But then again, you have to think about the entire playing field and where your shortcomings are as far as the game progresses.
Right.
So I would guess, to me, one particularly strong component of a strong remote server in this instance right here is making sure you have that code gate over there, right? At some point. One of those 2 face down cards has to be a code gate of some sort. Maybe. You would like it to be anyway.
Right. But here's the deal also. So imagine you're him. One of the great marks of being an excellent player, and look, there's an R&D interface, so we see the direction the game is probably going to go soon.
Absolutely.
One of the marks of a great player is that knowledge. So he knows that he knows where his own vulnerability is. He knows that if I do run Grail, if I have Merlin on the remote, I can force a program trash. Mm-hmm. And if you notice, that's why he doesn't really touch it. Mm-hmm. To play he already knows my game.
Yeah, a lot of people
he doesn't
run that
have to
remote
play
just to spend money, right?
They
make you spend money.
The thing is that Zach is a good enough player to know that running right now on the remote is not wise because he has no way to break it if it is a code gate breaker.
Right.
And I think he knows what's left in his deck, so he says, hey, whatever. There's no reason for me to go over there. Just focus on R&D and HQ. If I need to get a code gate breaker, I can try to find one.
Right, and I mean, and another really big aspect about playing with or versus RP is that card that's just sitting in the remote server over there. I mean, it could be a couple of things. Whether you have the influence spent on Ash or or it's just a regular old Caprice, which is never bad.
Right.
A lot of people would like to run that remote server to get rid of the potential hazards later on in the game that's going to stop you from sealing that agenda that's installed advanced or something like that. But again, talking about his current situation here, it's not really that safe to go and try and attempt to do that.
No, I mean, it would just be irresponsible. I mean, he knows he can't break it. It would basically try. He'd be almost losing the game if he let me try to trigger that. Yeah,
as really displayed in the Worlds videos, the championship videos this year. Criminal's shortcoming at the moment is that code gate breaker. It's always really been that code gate breaker, right. That reliable code gate breaker that's able to get you over there. Ha! Wow. And it turns out that was a mental health clinic. Good bluff. That's. Yeah.
And I mean, this is where I kind of go. You know what? I just gotta I was like, I don't have time. Like, there's no way. There's no way I'm gonna stop him. So the best play here is just to try to just push it through. Let's just see what happens.
So question, that was sitting there for a couple of turns. I mean, was there any? Did you want to bluff that out as a Caprice?
Yes.
Okay, so
yes, I figured if I didn't advance it, he'd either assume it was like a and there it is. I mean, like I said, he's a smart guy. He had it in his hand the whole time because he knew that I'd look at his play and go, well, this is where he's vulnerable. He doesn't have a Koge breaker. Mm-hmm. So, and that's exactly what happened. For plays like this, it was a total misplay by me. There's a lot of things I could have done early. I go ahead and I say I'll pay it just to pay it, but it doesn't make sense. Look, there's a Merlin, and I mean it costs him nothing. I data sucker counter.
Look at that, yeah, wow, yeah, exactly. He's got enough data sucker counters built up to with Yogg, and it doesn't matter how many you show in your hand; they're all gonna get broken.
Exactly, and of course I do that, and then I use the Nisei counter. But I mean, I think he knows he's got enough money. He can just take the net damage, use the Data Sucker on Merlin, it's free, and then just have the 3 for the Galahad, and that'll be game.
And that's definitely something that Yogg makes up for, and has always been such an efficient breaker, is that he's able to do something like this, where normally people wouldn't have the money to go back in, but because Yogg breaks for free, he can break Merlin, without having to worry about it with just the Data Sucker counters, and having just Pup and Galahad, doesn't take too much more money to go back in there and take whatever it is.
Right.
Unfortunately, this is one of those instances where RP is kind of caught off guard, and the ice placement is definitely something that's extremely important. But again, it's not really something that you can entirely control. Whatever comes up, comes up.
Yeah.
You just control where you put things and where you think is the best at the time.
I will say, I think I really do believe the MVP of his game was that personal touch was just amazing. I mean,
yeah, it's extremely interesting. So much of this game and so much popularity as far as the decks that people choose and the way they play them goes by, what is popular out there on sites and whatnot. And personal touch, you won't find it. Like, come on.
No, I mean, it's really not. It's not really that popular right now in the meta. I mean, the thing is the meta itself dictates why the personal touch would actually be better, because you are dealing with RP, which has lower strength sentries, and then you're also dealing with goodness gracious, you're also dealing with the NEH decks that can tax you really well. So having cards like Ghost Runner, which lets you help score those NAPDs, having cards like the personal touch, which lets Yogg and Switchblade become an even more efficient breaker. You need that. I mean, the meta is basically calling for it. Yeah. And I'm happy that's a thing.
Yeah. But, well played by both of you. And look forward to seeing a couple more matches. We're going to try and post a couple more matches from both the Swiss and the elimination rounds. Maybe not commentate on the Swiss rounds per se, just trying to get them out there, and because there's a lot of videos that we recorded that day. But we'll definitely look forward to commentating on some of the elimination rounds and maybe having a couple of special guests along with us.
Cool, man.
Hope you guys stick around and check out the next one. Appreciate it, guys.
Thank you, guys.